For more on the conflict, we are joined by CBS News contributor and retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster. He also served as a national security advisor in the first Trump administration. General, always good to see you. So, despite this extension, the threat of U.S. strikes on Iranian energy facilities is not off the table. The markets have been extremely volatile over the past couple of days in the wake of not just these strikes that we've seen throughout the course of the last week or so, but with the president's threat, although oil prices fell dramatically after the president made the announcement that he was going to hold off on striking those oil facilities. So why would the United States strike those oil facilities, given the huge economic repercussions it would have, not just for the Iranians, of course, but also here at home and, in fact, around the world?
Well, Vlad, it's great to be with you and with Adriana. I think the real reason for this kind of back and forth is that President Trump is trying to ensure that Iran doesn't continue to attack critical infrastructure in the Gulf and to threaten them with greater destruction of their own oil and gas facilities and their power plants. Remember, that's another aspect of this, so that they will desist from their attacks on shipping in the Straits of Hormuz and against critical infrastructure in the Gulf. Just for what it's worth, I don't think that's going to work. And the reason is what the Iranian regime wants to do is they want to keep the keys to the Straits of Hormuz for coercive purposes. They want to continue to coerce their Gulf, their partners, or allies, neighbors, and Israel with these long-range ballistic missile and drone capabilities, but then also be able to have this effect on the global economy. And I think that's an unacceptable outcome for President Trump and now the Gulf states and Israel and a growing coalition against Iran.
But General, isn't Iran's potential control of the Strait of Hormuz, wasn't that the most obvious card they had to play here? Why is it that it seems that the U.S. was not prepared for this?
Well, Adriana, we actually were prepared for it. I don't know where this narrative came out that it was a big surprise. I mean, we do an annual exercise with up to 30 countries and about the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and how to reopen it. And so what you're seeing in the campaign now, and I think this is really important to understand, is a continuation of the joint, the combined force of the U.S. and Israel prioritizing the missile and the drone capabilities, including their manufacturing capabilities, including their ability to reconstitute their missiles and drones with support from Russia and China. There are a couple of ships sailing right now with solid fuel from China. I don't think they're going to make it to Iran. And you saw the IDF in the last 24, 48 hours striking ships in the Caspian Sea in the far north of Iran because Russia was smuggling drones into Iran to reconstitute their capabilities.
But General,
so that's the first priority.
If we were prepared for this, why are we asking Europe and NATO to help us secure the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, you need additional capabilities to sustain that opening. Remember the 1980 to 1988 tanker war. It wasn't just a one and done. So I think what you're going to see, like in the next week or so, Adriana, is a shift in the focus of the combined force on reopening the Straits of Hormuz, targeting anything that could influence the Straits of Hormuz. Then you'll see the proofing of the Straits with U.S. mine-clearing vessels. But you want other vessels to come in as well from Poland, from the UK, Australia, Japan. They're on the way now, but it takes like 30 days, right, to get ships from Europe down into the Straits and integrate them into the task force. So that's going to take some time, but that'll be important because it will be a sustained effort. It's not going to be, oh, hey, the Straits are open now. And when they do reopen, you'll see a few ships, a few more ships, and a path, toward resumption of normal traffic.
General, the president just gave an interview to CNBC where he spoke to one of their correspondents, Joe Kernan, there, and he suggested that a regime change is happening in Iran. But help me out. Maybe it is, but it's regime change not as we know it, Jim, because from my understanding, regime change would mean that a new leader comes into power, one that is perhaps more sympathetic to the United States in how they govern that particular country, in this case, Iran. We haven't seen people rising up to take control of that country. And when the president says that Iran wants to make a deal, and we, meaning the United States, wants to make a deal. So if that deal does materialize, what will this have all been for? If the Iranian Revolutionary Guard is still in power, if the Ayatollahs are still running the country, the people have not risen up, all we've got to show for it is people who've been killed in Iran and some American soldiers who lost their lives tragically in the early hours of this war. I mean, doesn't it signal that Iran will be more recalcitrant than ever, that they will continue to do whatever it is that led us to this point because we haven't succeeded in dislodging anything?
Well, yeah, they'll be as recalcitrant as ever if it is still people in power who adhere to the ideology of the revolution and its permanent hostility to the United States. You know, the great Satan, they call us the great Satan for a reason. You know, the cancerous boil is how they refer to Israel and their Arab neighbors. You know, they cause so much destruction against their Arab neighbors and cause so much pain and hardship and loss of life in the region. You know, really their strategy had been for many, many years, for decades, to expend every Arab life if necessary to accomplish their objectives of hegemonic influence in the Middle East, surround Israel, destroy Israel, kill all the Jews. Step A of that is to get us out of the region. So if you get a new crop of leaders who adhere to that ideology, that means the war's not over. The war's not going to be over. And it's important to remember that this is not a new war. This is the latest campaign in a 47-year-long war that Iran has been waging against the great Satan, you know, the cancerous boil, and their Arab neighbors.
Really interesting. I mean, you know, hopefully that this conflict does come to an end. That is, I think, the hope of everybody. We'll see. The president says that talks are happening. Let's hope something productive comes of those.
Hey, Vlad, one quick thing, if you got a second.
Yeah.
You know, and the reporting about like, hey, you know, who's talking from the Iranian regime? That regime is fragmented right now. Right. The foreign ministry probably doesn't know who the hell's talking to, you know, to these interlocutors or to the U.S. directly. So I think we're going to see a lot of this kind of confusing reporting because the Iranians are so fragmented from these strikes.
That's an excellent point. As always, Lieutenant General H.R. McMaster, thank you, sir. Love having you. Thank you.
Thanks.